Last episode, we explored from the neuroscience of deconstruction to Dabrowski's positive disintegration, which reminds us that falling apart is not the end of the story. The dismantling is sacred. It's the shedding of false identities, beliefs, and survival patterns that we've held onto. And when the dust settles, when the noise quiets, what begins to surface is something ancient and familiar. That's where we're heading next, into the remembering. Remembering who we were before the world told us who to be. Remembering the truth that still lives inside and underneath the programming. Remembering the divine intelligence that's always been guiding us home.
This is Realigned and Unfiltered.
Together, we're peeling back the layers, exploring consciousness, and transforming life's messiness into meaning.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello, welcome. Thank you to everybody who's been listening and watching and following. It's so great.
Yes, I'm so excited for the connections we're making with the community. I mean, it's amazing. So keep growing, keep subscribing, keep liking, and let's get this thing keep rolling. Right. But I'm really excited for this episode because here in this episode, we are going to enter into the remembering. So remembering who we are before the programming, right? And remembering the divine intelligence that has always been within us. And I'm going to go a little bit into my personal history here to give you some just perspective on me and kind of what drove my life's path and what I'm doing now. And it really, for me, as we go into this remembering part of the awakening process, is for me, Carlie, it really started as a little girl. When I was a little girl, I was 3 years old. I experienced death really early on, really early on. So my dad died when I was 3 years old, and at that point, it really hit me deep. I had a very close connection. I was daddy's little girl, and it made me really right at that young age, start questioning life and death. It really was me questioning life and death and knowing that I still felt such a connection with my dad. I was angry, like why he had to leave. There was so much as a little child that I was going through emotionally, but at that point in time, it really also made me feel start questioning, and it opened my mind to thinking beyond this realm very early on in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. What an existential moment at such a young age. It really did kind of prime you for existentialism and existentialist thought. So that's, a horrible thing to have to go through. And yet, so cool how you can now extract from it in such a beautiful
Right. It started so early on with the way I was thinking about life and how I grew up. And then later on in my life, I then, there was death in family that also, also made me view kind of death as more of a transition in life. And then I also lost my baby, and that felt like death for me on a whole new level. Like that was a whole new
Absolutely.
version of who I was, at the identity level.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you are a lost mom who is listening to this, I will link something below to help you along the process, because I know that this is something that needs a lot of support. But that was a point also where I started questioning, and I started seeing death more as a transition, because again, I'm still connected to my baby. I still feel the connection with my baby, not here in the physical. So it again, more of that curiosity with the unseen world, right? And then also beyond like the deaths that have occurred in my life, there was also me as I grew up as a little girl. I grew up seeing auras. So, auras being, people's energies. But I grew up seeing auras, in which I didn't think much of what I was seeing, because to me it was actually normal, until like I was in church one day, and I was the lights around certain priests really were very drastically different. And I didn't know, again, and that's when I started actually speaking out loud about it. And I started telling my mom, like tugging her during church, and be like, Mom, I'm seeing these lights, and this priest has this, is very low and dim, and this priest, like his light was very bright. And so my mom was like, "What what is going on here?" You know, she was like, "What's going on here with my
Like,
daughter?"
little Catholic Latina mama being like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
we're going to the
She was just
priest.
kind of right. Yeah, yeah, and she did. She took me to the priest.
Yep.
She took me to, like, a confessional, session, booth. She's like, "This is going on with my daughter." And thankfully, you know, the priest was very, good. He didn't shut down anything. He just
Amazing.
pointed to my forehead right here, to
Mhm.
the middle of my forehead, and he said her pretty much he said, like, her third eye is open, and she could help a lot of people with this. So
Wow.
you know, my mom was like, "Okay," and I kind of grew up with that, and so those are all things that I kind of grew up with, this curiosity that I had, and it all kept me very engaged and very interested that we are more than this body, right? We're energetic beings, and that really just, you know, I really dived into that, and then later on, also I got into like energy healing courses and stuff like that because I wanted to learn more about it. But anyway, so that all kind of primed me, right? It really primed me and it really kind of kept me engaged with my curiosity. And that all led me to, as I got older, dive into more research, more to like science kind of perspective with things, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I find it really interesting that you had this very spiritual, curious, esoteric type childhood way of thinking that stuck with you the whole time. And you dove into science. You dove into research and science and grounding. And a lot of people in that field you find are a little more like, okay, whatever that spirituality is, no
Yeah.
thanks. Because we need to know what we can prove. And yet you kind of went at it a different way. And I mean, degrees in science and degrees in post degrees in science. And yet you really have this grounded scientific neurobiology approach to all the stuff that you've known in your innermost being forever. I
Right.
I, I
Yes.
love that. I love that. We need people like you.
It was just it was so exciting to me as I was diving into this world because it grounded me, you know, it grounded my thoughts and everything into like, oh, I could put this into words and explain it and understand it. And there's a process, you know, I was just like, it was
Yeah.
very exciting for me. Okay, so now let's dive into what's actually happening in your brain right now during this remembering phase, because this isn't just a spiritual concept, right? So in the deconstruction phase, we talked about your neural pathways, the network that's carried through our old patterns of thought, our beliefs, and our identity. And starting, all those things are starting to break down. So that's the neuroplasticity in the brain in action. And then remember, I also brought up Hebb's law that neurons that fire together wire together, right? And so now, when old patterns stop firing because either your environment, you're going through this breakdown, your relationship, or your sense of self has changed, those old pathways they begin to unwire, right? Hebb's law in reverse, and that's why the deconstruction feels all disoriented. But now here is where it also gets interesting as we go into the remembrance phase, is that the brain's default mode network, right? What we always default to. It's the system that activates when we're not focused on something, on like an external task, like we're daydreaming or we're self-reflecting or we're either thinking about the past or the future. We're in that default mode in our mind. Okay.
Mhm.
And so that network, it destabilizes, and those old loops that we have, they quiet down. So that's when we start feeling that identity loss. But during the remembrance phase, the default mode, it starts to reintegrate, but this time it starts to integrate based on um, a new way of thinking, a new way of being, and a new identity that we're starting to form. So
Right.
it's like our brain is starting to reassemble the story of ourselves with this updated code that we're starting to now slowly put into place.
So before we get into the reassembling, so we've agreed in in the deconstruction, the default mode network is quieted down. This is that kind of messy middle place where we begin to figure out how to reassemble. And I just wanted to jump in before you start talking about that a little bit, because this is where I find a lot of clients that I'm working with they'll get to the point where they're like, I no longer want to go down that road that I usually go down. Okay, we've quieted that road down. We've realized that that road is no longer for us. But now here I am standing at an impasse because I need to have some sort of form of thought and I need to have a new pathway to go, but I'm not totally sure where I get that pathway from. And it's a very uncomfortable place to sit
Yeah.
in the I don't really know how I think now. I don't
Mhm.
really know how I feel now. And so there's a lot of work that can be done on being in that discomfort and in the waiting. But what I often say to people is like, now is a great opportunity for you to start, I like it like this, dating new pathways.
I
Don't
like
get
that.
married to any new
Mhm.
pathways. Don't immediately hear a new concept and go, okay, that one, because you're so ready to just latch on to a new way of thinking.
Mhm.
Really just date them, read a book, find it interesting, see if some of it resonates, watch a documentary, find it interesting, see if some of it resonates, attend a new class, and date the pathways. Be like, okay, let me see what it feels like to go down this neural pathway instead of that one, to go down this way of thinking instead of
Right.
that one. Let me see if it feels good, if it resonates, if I like it. Maybe what you do is you go, okay, I tried that for a little bit. I didn't marry it, so I'm free to walk back from it. I liked
Mhm.
this from it. I'm going to keep that and stitch that into my heart. Okay,
Mhm.
now I'm going to try this one. I liked that a little. I'm going to keep that stitched into my heart. Tried that, did not like that. You know,
Mhm.
not gonna. And that's where, because you're learning now what we're gonna talk about with your nervous
Mhm.
system, your parts and everything, what resonates and what doesn't, you can start to form the pathway then that you do want to marry, that you do want to commit to and become. So I just wanted to point that out from a clinical perspective, what it's like for people when they're in the, I no longer am this way, but the ego and the self really is like, but I need to be something.
Yeah.
Don't grab the first thing that comes along. Don't marry the first pathway that comes along. Give yourself a chance to sit in the discomfort of becoming and unbecoming, becoming and unbecoming, becoming and unbecoming.
Yeah.
Does that
And
make
we're
sense?
gonna dive no, it definitely does. And we're gonna get into more of that in the reconstruction phase.
Right.
And we'll talk more about the tools to help reconstruct and what you really want to entertain, what
Yeah.
you really want to marry.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but this also ties into what's actually happening here is remember the homie RAS, the reticular activating
Sure.
system?
Homie Raz. Yeah. The homie
The
Raz.
homie Raz, okay, got our back. So the homie Raz, again, it acts like it's like the brain's filter for attention, and it starts to reorient right now too during this remembering phase. So when you're in survival or grief, the Raz filtered the world through either safety and threat. So like, what do I need to protect myself from? That's what the Raz is filtering. And when you're entering the remembering phase, your RAS begins to tune more into the meaning and possibility, right? So you start seeing things different in your environment, more opportunities, more connections, more synchronicities, because your attention filter is updating and starting to kind of reorient itself. So this is why a lot of people during this phase too, they start saying things like, "Oh, I'm starting to feel like myself again," or "I'm seeing signs everywhere, these synchronicities," and things like that, because it's actually not random. It's your biology that's catching up with your new perception. So
Wow.
things are lining up. Well, that's
Uh-huh.
powerful to think about it like
Very
that when
powerful. And that's the
yeah.
Raz. That's the Raz
That's
going like synchronicity, synchronicity,
mhm.
synchronicity. Ah, it's making
Yes.
it possible for us to see all
Right.
these messages from the universe.
Because now we've deconstructed. Now all that programming, all the things that have been distracting us have fallen away.
Well, and all the filtering, right? We were filtered not to notice. And now we're being well, the filters are gone and now our Raz is like, "Hey, check that out. Hey, check that.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, hey." Yeah. This is a big thing that I see with a lot of clients is you wouldn't believe the amount of synchronicities. I
Mhm.
thought this and then I saw that, or I saw that and then I saw this. And it's a really powerful opportunity when I just say, just tune into those.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't mean anything to you right now, tune into them because this is the universe reaching out. And this is your brain chemistry reaching out and saying, hey, something's happening here. You don't have to know what it is quite yet. Just hang
Hmm.
on.
Yeah.
Trust, trust.
And then this is also the rewiring part. So this is where the neural pathways also start firing. You start firing these new neural pathways, and these kind of start to stabilize. So you're making these new connections when you're starting to choose to entertain more of your thoughts, like how you said, pay attention to that one, lock into that one. When you do, when you start putting more attention and more emotional energy into that thought, you're
Hmm.
reinforcing a new pathway, a
Hmm.
new way of being, a new way of thinking. And it's a great opportunity to be more, self compassionate with yourself and curious and trust more in life. So it's being conscious that now I get to choose a new thought, right? I
Right,
get to respond differently to a trigger. And then being able to anchor ourselves more in the presence that we want to live in, and then strengthen the circuits that we have firing.
right,
And so I like explaining the way that our how long it takes for a new pathway kind of to become stable and automated. So it typically takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and I like thinking about it like planting a seed, like when you're growing a garden, right? In the first 1 to 3 weeks when you're planting a seed, it's like where you plant a seed. This is where your brain starts making new connections, and you might not feel anything different yet, but change is happening more at the cellular level. You planted a seed and now, something is there, at
love
the
it.
cellular level happening. And then from weeks 3 to 6, this is where we're nurturing that seed, right? We're watering it. Where the connection is now strengthening through repetition and emotion, just like watering and nurturing your garden, right?
Beautiful.
You want to nurture that, and this is when you'll start noticing little shifts in how you start feeling because now you've fed it, right?
Mhm.
And then in the last between 6 to 12 weeks, this is when those pathways become automatic. This is when your plant is now blooming and flourishing. This is where your new way of being feels very natural and effortless and truly yours. And so, and this is like why I build my programs also where they're at a minimum 6 week longs, because it's not random. It's built around your biological timeline for
Right.
your brain to be able to create, stabilize, and then automate, lasting change. Well, yeah. So I love thinking about it that way, about, you're planting a seed, you're nurturing it, and then you get to see it flourish. It's the same thing with, what I want to plant this thought, I want to entertain it, feed it, give it some emotion, and then I get to create and integrate it and create this neural pathway, the circuits and neurons that fire together to wire together, and then
Yeah.
I've updated my neurology, right?
And to jump on the gardening analogy a little, which I love, by the way, I think it's so important to remember that the first thing that happens is that roots grow. So the first thing that happens when this little
Mhm.
seed is in there and it's
Yeah.
being nurtured is the roots grow down first before the plant
Mhm.
grows up. So there's a lot happening when you don't really see anything. There's a lot happening. The roots are growing down, the roots are spreading up, they're gaining nutrients from, your identity and what's in there. So a really great thing to do when you're trying to plant new seeds and create new pathways and make sure you weed that garden. If you if
Yeah.
you stick a seed down into the ground, but there's like rocks and other plants and weeds and nonsense, it's going to be harder for
Right.
that seed to grow its roots and gain nourishment. So it's a great
Mhm.
idea when you're doing this kind of thing to be like pulling out the old weeds and pulling out the dead
Prune
stuff.
and prune, yeah, and
Real,
yeah,
yeah,
and that's what we
clean.
call neuropruning, right? Neuropruning too. That's like a neuroscience term that's used, is you have to neuroprune.
Right,
So get rid of
right.
those old circuits and, don't let them cloud the new program that that new pathway that you have are starting to really establish there.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm really excited because I think in our next episode, when the reconstruction episode, we're going to get a lot of NLP. We're going to get a lot
Yes.
of neuropruning and
Mhm.
value extracting and all of these. You'll tell us more about that.
Yeah.
But I love this analogy of the garden and of the planting of the seed and the roots and,
Yes.
where are you
That's
even planting the seeds? I think that's excellent. I think people can really grasp that
mhm.
idea. So,
Right,
good
right.
share,
And
Dee.
then yeah, yeah, thanks. And then also one thing that I want to add here, it's not just, let me just think a thought. The glue of holding a thought in into and integrate it is the emotion behind it. Right? The emotion is the glue of memory and learning is when we feel that energy in motion, emotion, the energy, and that it's the emotional charge behind the new experience and the new thought that determines how powerfully we really lock it into our system. So,
Yes, and this is true in multiple ways, right? Your most intense memories will
mhm.
be the ones with the most intense emotion. So,
Yeah,
when did I experience a sense of really intense embarrassment? I can click back to the most embarrassing moment of my life in
exactly.
seconds because the
And you feel it.
emotion, yeah, the
Mhm.
energy and motion, the emotion was super intense or, but also
Yeah.
intense emotions of love, intense emotions of joy. What about intense moments of pride about self? Wow, look at me. Look how I handled that. Let me just tap
Mhm.
that one into my nervous system and
Yeah.
feel that emotion, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a great thing also to bring up. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we pair the new thought or the habit, with that strong positive emotion, because now we're in that remembrance where we're able in this kind of standstill where we get to choose what is it that we want to entertain, what is it the direction we want to go in, but being just mindful of like, okay, I want to pair this thought with a positive emotion, like either gratitude. Gratitude is it's huge, right?
Yep.
Hope or feeling love. And then we get to accelerate the rewiring. And again, we're going to get into more of that with the reconstruction, but I think it's just very important to call that out
Yeah.
because we want to be mindful again of what we're putting our emotion into during this remembering phase. So,
Absolutely. And we want to find some balance too, because we've already talked about a lot. There is a lot of grief when it comes to the disintegration. There's a lot of grief. There can be a lot of anger. I can't believe I was taught that. I can't believe I believed that. I'm so angry at whoever, forced that belief on me. There can be a lot of those emotions. And so when we're getting into this remembering phase where we're just, deconstructing, we don't want to get so caught up in the anger that then that's the emotion of our remembering. we
yeah.
we want to really
Mhm.
balance that with, oh, look at the way I handled this differently. I have a lot of gratitude for myself for being able
Mhm.
to do that. I have a lot of
Mhm.
pride that I was able to do that. I have a lot of joy that I was able to think differently this time and really trying to balance out and then eventually tip the scales towards
Mhm.
gratitude, love, joy, peace, patience. We want to
Mhm.
be really kind to ourselves in this process and really take moments to celebrate, even something that feels small,
You're right.
really celebrating that
Absolutely.
I
That's so
didn't jump
important.
to that conclusion like I used to. Really celebrate that. Let me call a friend and tell them how proud I am of myself, right?
Yes.
Let me write in
Yes.
the comments on Realigned and Unfiltered how proud I am of myself for this
You
moment.
just read my mind. Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like when our listeners here, I mean, we've loved connecting with you guys in our comments on our TikToks. It's just like those are moments that we're celebrating because it's like so exciting for us and we're two thumbs up. But it's reinforcing, what it is that we're going into further and deeper and more and more.
Yeah.
And the small celebrations are vital to that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that word celebration. I think
Hmm.
that's the word that we want to take through this is celebrate every moment
Yeah.
where you're able to not respond the way that you would have. Even if
Hmm.
you're not sure that that's how you want to respond always, just the fact
Yeah.
that you didn't go down the old pathway deserves celebration.
Yeah, you didn't default, right? You didn't go do it back to your default mode. That's the power within us, right? That's the divinity. I just want to say, that remembering phase is the biology of who we are and our consciousness reuniting. It's getting back together. They're no longer fighting each other to survive our past. It's
Mhm.
reorganizing. We're reorganizing to create a new future.
Right.
And so remembering isn't just about going back. Again, it's about that integration to pointing us to the direction that we want to go to, and like this is who I am now, and I'm safe to be her. I'm
Oh,
safe. I'm safe to be this person.
yeah.
And then I think at this point too, it's reminds us of where spiritually, this is where we also start reconnecting to source, and kind of touched that a little bit in the beginning here. But um, so I've worked in the engineering industry for 10 plus years. And one of the first things I started working in was software configuration. And this is like the Chandler moment for Carly, where like, what is software configuration? Anyway.
You saw me slowly dissociating into my tea.
Right, yeah. But I'm not going to get into what software configuration is. What my point of bringing that up is like when I got at this point in my career and I started getting into understanding like the software process and how it worked, it was a huge aha moment for me because when software engineers they build programs and software programs, they start with a source code. And they
Uh-huh.
use that source code to then build requirements around what program they want to build. Then they design it, they test it, and then they release it, and then they manage it, right? There's errors and bugs and things that happen, but it starts with that source code. And to me, when I was going through my awakening process, I was like, it was just such a like, oh my gosh, like this is the same way we are connected to source God, right? This is we're connected to source. And I could never remove that from me. It's the energetic force, it's the beingness of who I am that created this body, that everything. And it was just a huge realization for me. And I realized, hey, the further we are from source is the more that we have these errors and these bugs and these things that are happening in our life, and where we start hating our life, or why is this happening to me, because we've just disconnected. We're not sorry, we haven't disconnected, but we're just very far away from the
Yeah.
source.
Yeah.
And then we get closer to it and we're like, oh, I'm starting to feel like remembering who I am, remembering the divinity within me, the essence of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting
And
when you say that because I think sometimes people go like, "Well, how am I supposed to remember who I am before the programming began?" Because when we're born, we're like mushy little plastic gray brains
right.
and mushy little pink bodies and the programming begins, you know?
Mhm,
This is what
mhm.
our family
Yeah.
thinks. This is what our family believes. This is what our society does from the very, very, very beginning. So how the heck am I supposed to remember? Well, this is what we're talking about is
Mhm.
not a human remembering of what was before the programming, but a soul level remembering of
Yeah.
there is a source code that is in each one of us from the creator.
Mhm.
And when we get back to that, there's a sense of resonance that
Right.
we use the word remembering because that's what we have in the English language, but it's a sense of resonance of, oh, this feels right. This feels
Yeah.
true. This feels real. Even if it contradicts what I was raised to think or believe, it feels true in my core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is also, I just like tying it to the alchemical process too, because this is when in the alchemical phase, this is where the remembering, right? We've gone through the deconstruction where we burned everything up, and then everything is now ashes. And then, but from those ashes is that fertile ground, right? For the gold to emerge, where the gold is then formed. And so
Where the
I think,
phoenix rises.
oh, where the
Yeah.
phoenix rises,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, I just, I think it's just fascinating to really think about, the remembering isn't
Uh-huh.
really just about going back again to who we were before, you know,
Uh-huh.
um, before pain, but it's about your brain, your identity, and literally learning that we can rewire ourselves to a truer version
Mhm.
of who we are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so rewiring to the truer version of who we are, once again, we find ourselves maybe going like, is there a map for that?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there a map? Is there somebody who could hold my hand through this? Is there and perhaps yes, but this is you coming into what resonates for you, and it will be unique for you, right? It will be unique for you. And so one of the things that we talked about last week that I still want to remember and talk more about is that the body becomes our compass if we can
Mm,
tune into it. And what does that mean exactly? What does it mean to connect back to source? So using our body as our compass means really acknowledging that this body, this vessel, is what I've chosen to go through this human life experience with. And therefore, let me listen to it. And how do I listen to it? Well, tune into your nervous system. That's
mm,
really the thing that we're looking to be able to do. And so I wanted to give a little bit of an education on the nervous system, on the body and the system itself. And so, where Diana's usually our science nerd, maybe I'll get a little bit science nerdy in this because I study polyvagal therapy. And that's therapy where we actually use the nervous system, we tune into specifically the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve, and it is responsible for checking to see if we're safe. So we've got our five senses that we think about all the time, right? We've got our sight, we've got our hearing, we've got our smelling, we've got our taste, we've got our touch, right? Da, 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 da. That's
mhm.
all with the physical outside of us body. But there is a nerve, our 10th cranial nerve, that starts at the back of our neck, winds its way up all through our ears, all down our jaw, all down our throat, all down our very major body parts like our lungs and our heart, and it goes all the way down into the gut.
Oh, okay.
And what it does is it searches and it seeks for safety. It's a process
Mm,
called neuroception. Neuroception.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
the body's unconscious ability to detect safety or danger before the mind can name it is found here, where it will then trigger our warning system. And our warning system is called our sympathetic nervous system, right? So we'll be in parasympathetic. This is, our heart rate is normal. Our breath is
mhm.
normal. We're living in, safety. I've just gotten out of bed. I'm enjoying my morning coffee. And then all of a sudden, something happens, right?
Mhm,
Maybe it's a
mhm,
car horn beeps and we go, "Huh?" Whereas what is that? That's our automatic nervous
mhm,
system safety system going, bracing. Am I safe?
mhm,
Right? You're driving along in the car, you're having a great conversation with somebody, everything's good. And then a car cuts you off. Like step on the brake and you grab the wheel, and this is your sympathetic nervous system mobilizing you for action. It's letting you know, hey, safety, danger, protect yourself. And
mhm,
then when the safety or danger is gone, okay, we relax back into our parasympathetic nervous system where our heart is going normal and our breath is going normal. We go back to having conversation with somebody. But sometimes the danger is not quite so easy and simple as a car cutting you off or hearing the honk of a horn, right? Sometimes the danger is I am living in a life that no longer feels safe or true. I am
mhm,
living misaligned to what is true for me. And my body is letting me know. There's knot in my stomach when I go to talk to somebody who I used to be comfortable talking to. Or there's a tightening in my chest when I'm going into a place, of group belief of some kind that no
mhm,
longer resonates with
mhm,
me. There's exhaustion after I performed roles that no longer fit for me. What is that? I'm bracing, or I'm kind of almost finding myself exhausted, wanting to play dead. That's where you end up in the bottom of your parasympathetic nervous system. So we have parasympathetic, where we have rest and restore up at the top, where we're just,
mhm,
calm, cool, and collected. And that's actually connected to the prefrontal cortex. Diana, brain
mhm,
nerd, will love this. And that's our decision making center. That's our center of connectedness. That's kind of all of our human functioning that we understand now at this stage of human development. Um, but when we suddenly realize that we need safety, that there's something not safe, what happens is our vagus nerve kind of pulls back a little and it starts firing our stress hormones. And when it's
Mhm.
firing our stress hormones, we're getting cortisol dumped into our body, we're getting adrenaline dumped into our body, we're tightening up, our heart's really beating because we're ready to run from the lion
Mhm.
or fight the bear or whatever it
Right.
is that historically as a human body we would have had to do. Well, now there aren't lions hunting us or bears around every corner, but what there are a lot of other kinds of dangers.
Mhm.
Here we're talking about the subtlety of the danger of, I don't believe that anymore. That doesn't feel safe
Yeah.
for me to be
Right.
in that. And it's the subtlety of your nervous system is bracing, or
Yeah.
your nervous
Yeah.
system doesn't have the energy to brace anymore. So it's kind of just going into down there at the bottom of the parasympathetic where the heart really slows down, where the breath really slows down, actually too slow.
Mhm.
And so where in the one hand in sympathetic, we're mobilizing for fear. And
Mhm.
this side now we're immobilizing and we're just like, I
Mhm.
just can't. I just can't. I'm too tired. I can't deal with it. It's too overwhelming. We go into, kind of shrink mode.
Yeah.
Right? So in ventral vagal, we are safe, we're connected, we're hopeful, we're thinking about the future, we're working on our little neural perception connector.
Mhm.
We're feeling great. We're connecting to one another and we're finding home. We're
Mm.
finding home in ourself. But when we're seeking approval, we're mobilizing.
Mm. Right.
When we're
Mhm.
hiding from disapproval, we're immobilizing. And this is just a great thing to understand because we realize that our body is letting us know aligned or misaligned. We don't have to judge it. We don't have to. This is where self compassion comes in, right? We can just recognize, so use our mindfulness to recognize clearly, I'm not feeling safe. We don't have to judge it. We could just say, I'm not feeling safe. And then we can use our self compassion, we can use our kindness to say, okay, so I'm going to just give myself a moment. I'm going to attend to this moment where I'm not feeling safe and I'm going to look around a little. I'm going to allow
Yeah.
my body to let me know that I'm not safe and then I'm going to just take a beat. I'm going to think
Mhm.
about it. I'm not going to judge myself for not feeling safe. I'm not going to judge and tell myself just
Mhm.
get over it, just move on, just I'm
Yeah.
I'm going to give myself a hot minute to think. Right? Come to safety in yourself where you can then kind of scan and notice where is the threat coming from. Because often we don't know. It's
Mhm.
not in our conscious mind. But like you're saying now, Diana, if we've gone through all of this disintegration and we've gone through all this deconstruction and we're no longer going down that pathway and all the good science words that you use, we're sort of going like, okay, I know what's happening. And now how do I come back to home?
There's an awareness there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of seeking safety from outside of me, I'm going to
Mhm.
start learning how to
Mm.
find safety inside of me. And this is this beautiful thing where the body really is our partner. The
Mhm.
body is our partner. We come back to
Mhm.
ourselves. Okay, body's letting me know that I'm not feeling safe. Body's letting me know that I'm not feeling aligned. And this is an important guidance system, right?
Yeah.
This is a really important guidance system. So when we're opening, we're opening the questioning this questioning the systems. We're questioning the systems of what my family taught me, what my religion taught me, what my culture taught me,
Mhm.
the ideology that I've really held to. Our body's letting us know this fits or this doesn't fit. Okay, this doesn't fit. Okay, I can admit that. I can admit that through where I'm feeling numb or where I'm feeling
Mhm.
overwhelmed. And then I can apply some mindful self compassion. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back, listen to it.
Yes.
It'll be helpful. I can apply some mindful self compassion to this. And instead of starting to override my symptoms or dissociate from my symptoms, like, okay, I feel really overwhelmed right now. I'm just going to stick some Netflix on and drink some wine and hopefully it goes away.
Mm.
Yeah. It's not going away.
No.
So why not be with it? Why not hold space for it and see if you can't figure out what's going on? Okay.
Mhm.
So
Love that.
yeah, me too. So we've got this physiological reorganization going on. with our spiritual reorganization, which we've covered quite a lot. And then here's the thing, when we're working with the nervous system and listening to this compass, we're encountering a lot of the time parts of us. So
Mm.
we've talked about the ego, and we've talked about like the management system of the brain. And a lot of the time, what we find in our nervous system is like, even when I've come to a new knowing, I know that that doesn't align with me anymore. And I know that that's the direction that I want to go. Our nervous system might not be so interested in
Mhm.
going with us, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what is happening a lot of the time is that there is a part of us that doesn't get it. There's a part of us that's like, no, 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 no. Hang on. I have believed this way, and it got me safety and security and connection with my parents, let's say. With my world, with my community. This is what kept me safe all along, believing this thing, doing this thing. How dare you try and take that away from us?
Mhm.
This part of me formed to gain safety and connection and whatever. And it worked. It
Mhm.
worked. So I work from a framework also believes that we are formed up of many parts that have
Mhm.
developed over the time of our life, right? Over the period of our life. And so we form parts of us that feel like they need to help us survive, and then we grow these protector parts that need to protect those parts, and we form these little exiles that live in our system. And there can be a whole other episode on this. But what I found was that I'm working with people's nervous systems, and we're physically doing this stuff, and we're using mindful self-compassion to do this stuff. But sometimes, no matter what they understand with their logical minds, the emotional mind just can't get there.
Right. Different parts are battling with each other, right?
Right. So there's the part who's very, very, very concerned with, I worked really hard to become this way, and I found safety in this way. We're going to hold on to it for all we're worth. And yet, what you're realizing here, over here in the true self that you're standing in, I want to go this direction, and some part of me can't. And so that part of me now is not helping me. It's actually not, it's hurting me now. And so what we want to do is we want to go find that part. And a lot of the time I'll use the nervous system with people to find that part. So the ventral part of you is probably the part that's connected most to self, right? The current self, feeling connected, feeling curious, feeling open, feeling authentic. I can make space for these new ways of believing. That's where we want to get you. The sympathetic part, right? That's where our fight and flight system lives, right? So it might be feeling like it wants to fight you. It might be feeling like it wants to run. No, we're not going that direction. We're going to go this way. It might actually be kind of freezing. And so you're like, I really want to get over there, but somehow I just feel frozen. I just can't.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
those parts feel like they're protecting us through control, perfectionism, overworking, anger. You'll find if you're noticing overworking, if you're noticing anger, you're noticing control, micromanaging, that's probably a part of you connected to your sympathetic nervous system, your mobilization response. Yeah. And then that dorsal part of you might be carrying those things, those feelings of collapse or withdrawal or numbness, right? Let's just put on Netflix
Mm.
and drink some wine and hope this goes
Yeah.
away, right? That's
Yeah.
your dorsal. That's your dorsal response, protecting you by shutting down from what feels like danger. Danger because
Oh,
it's not what we were trained to believe, or
right.
it's not the persona that we built in order to find safety and connection,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That makes
So
sense.
right. So when we want to work with our nervous system and we want to work with our parts, what we want to do is we want to move from fighting our parts, right? Fighting our defenses, to befriending them. I get a lot of people going, I know exactly where I want to go. Why can't I get there? Right?
Mhm.
I got clients all the time coming to me. That's exactly where I want to be. I know what I want to believe. The logic is there. The emotion can't follow. Why?
Right.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I yeah, I think that we could really do a whole episode just on parts and integrating parts because it could get so deep as in realizing that. these parts are, to your point, are there for a reason.
Yep.
They're part of a bigger system,
Yep.
are part of a whole, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
They're part of the whole. And sometimes it's time for those parts to go.
Mm,
Sometimes what we really need to do is just make a connection with those parts and allow them to form a new role in our life in supporting where we want to go. And sometimes it really is time to set them free. But the thing is, they're pretty deeply rooted in there in our psyche or in our nervous system. And so we need to go towards those parts with my favorite word, compassion, right? Because a lot of people will, well, how do I get rid of it? I'm fearful. How do I get rid of it? How would you get rid of a screaming child? Would you throw them
yeah.
off the balcony?
No,
No.
not if you're a humane person. No.
Right. You would get down, crouch down.
Right.
You would look
I
them
love
in
this.
the eyes, take their hands, and you'd say, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. What's up? What
Right.
do you need? What's going on? You'd offer them hugs. Sometimes they don't want the hug. They're going to push you and, I'm really
Mm-hmm.
activated. And sometimes they want the hug. We're going to go with our open body language. We're going to go with compassion. We're going to go with curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's up? I may think that I know what's bothering you, but perhaps I don't. Where's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
screaming coming from?
Right.
That you need in order to stop screaming. And so, what we're actually doing, this is an interesting thing. It's a process called reparenting. We're going into the inner child self because so many of these parts developed in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So many,
Mm-hmm.
even in young adulthood or in teenagehood, when we really, really needed to make connections for survival, right? We're going back to those parts inside of our system, often found in our nervous system. And then I do a little bit of a psyche process to get you in there. And we're saying to that part, what's up? What's up? What do you need? How can I help? And a lot of the time, just by tuning into that part with curiosity instead of frustration, with compassion instead of judgment, that part will then stop screaming.
Yeah. I'm heard. That you're here. You're listening to me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, then I don't need to scream. That part will stop screaming and that will feel good. And then maybe we even give it more. We say, what is it that you think that you're protecting me from? Well, I'm protecting you from, or here, let me show you when I developed and why I was so necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If you go
Mm-hmm.
that direction, that's really far away from this thing that I developed to protect you from.
Yeah.
And what we can say to that beautiful, sweet part inside of us is, oh, thank you so much for doing that for me. You really did get me connection. You really did keep me safe. You really
Yeah.
did protect me. And now I'm going to show you something. I'm 40 years old. I have all this education. I've done this with my life. I've created all of these things that I've created. Would you like to trust me now?
Yeah.
You like to come, ride around with me? Would you like to be free from this balcony where you're stuck screaming?
Yeah.
And
I
these
love that.
these parts, these inner parts, oh my gosh, do they ever love just being heard? And do they ever love just knowing, "Oh, you don't you don't need me to do that anymore? I could actually
Mm-hmm.
be free from this memory that I constantly live in,"
Yeah. Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
lot
We
of
don't need to fight anymore.
you don't need to fight
Part of me
anymore.
this, part of me that.
You don't
No.
have to fight anymore. You don't have to sound the alarm anymore. You can be free. And so a lot of these parts, when we do parts where we'll actually enjoy exiles, especially, we'll actually enjoy to go free. And they will leave your system when you escort them with love, with compassion, with thanks, right? With gratitude for what
Yeah.
they've done. And letting them know, hey, I've got this now. I know what's up. Sometimes there are protectors in there who are like, "Ah," and you can actually kind of have this communication with them where you say, how could I get you in alignment with me now? This is me now. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. I feel good about it. The exile's been taken care of. Hey, protector, do you want to sound the alarm in this way instead of that way? Do you want to let me know when I should pay attention? Because we need our mobilization. Otherwise, we get hit by cars. We need to know to quickly stop when something fast. do you want to be wisdom that supports me instead of an alarm that's sounding so loud that I can't move forward, right? So it's this interesting work that we can do with these parts of us.
Very deep work. Yeah.
Very deep work, very psyche oriented work. Well, how are we ever supposed to know those parts are in there? You'll find them in your nervous system. You'll find them in the
Mhm.
tightening of your belly. You'll find them in the tightening of your chest. You'll find them in the pain in your jaw.
Mhm.
And so I would encourage people, I mean, this is work that I do with people, but I would encourage people that as they're going through this deconstruction and remembering phase, hey, notice what part of your nervous system isn't liking it. Notice what part of your body is having a hard time. You got a lot of clenching in your jaw. What if you just brought your hands to your jaw and you just tuned into your jaw and you tuned into the pain in your jaw? What if you just brought your mindful self compassion over to your jaw and you said, I'm noticing there's a lot of pain in my jaw. Hey, jaw, what do you want to tell me? What is it
Yeah.
you're mobilized for? What is
And
it
the
that we're
thing is,
clenching?
yeah. I think, Carly, it's so funny because when I first started doing this, I do parts integration and stuff, and you kind of like feel like I'm crazy. I'm talking to myself, you know, you know. But it is like you have to. No one else is going to tune in for you. You're the only person that can do that. You're the only person that's feeling what you're feeling. You have to tune in to your beingness and recognize that this part is trying to meet this part that you feel like you're battling, part of me this, part of me that. It's trying to meet, and it came to creation, it came to existence because it tried to meet some sort of value. It was trying to meet something that was important to you at some point in your life, right? And then so giving it everything that you just explained, giving it the attention it needs is just like, oh, now I am safe and you do hear me and you do love me and I could integrate into the higher where we're all going now, right?
Yeah.
The direction we're all going.
Getting the parts of you in line with where you
Yeah.
wanna go. And, it's funny, in my line of work, we don't really use the word crazy. But I do have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, "You want me to do what?" Or they're like,
Yeah.
"I I don't know what you're talking about." And, we are all made of so many parts. It took you 40 years to become this way, and
Mhm.
all along the way, you you had experiences that taught you how to be. And
Mhm.
part of you formed in that experience and then it stayed there. And then part of you formed in this experience and it stayed there and it has been running a program. Programs. It's
Mhm.
running a program in your system that's told you this is how I receive security. This is how I receive safety. This is how I show up and people will perceive me. And it serves until it doesn't. Right? When you've recognized this is an old pathway that I no longer want to entertain, you may have to go to that program and connect with it. You may have to
Mhm.
let it know that it's no longer necessary. And I mean, there is definitely some caution in work like this, right? There is
Yeah.
definitely some feedback that those parts will give you that's not always super impressed, right? You can
Mhm.
sometimes get really blended up with those. And that's why it is really good to do this in connection with somebody who can walk you through it
Yeah.
and kinda help you to do this, right?
Absolutely.
Do some gentle
'Cause
work with yourself. Tune into your heart and see if,
Mhm.
who is that part of me that's struggling, what part of me is struggling. But be really gentle, be really careful, and seek help if it just feels like this part's really fighting back because
Yeah.
sometimes
Resistance.
the resistance, we get really blended up in the resistance and it actually really pulls us back. Sometimes even it can manifest into illness. I mean, that's certainly what happened with me. I was trying to go too far too fast and
Mhm.
an illness came. Really painful illness. And I had to kind of baby step my way through it until I had been able to layer enough compassion into each of my joints and layer
Yeah.
enough trust in my body to really do this reconstruction, which
Yeah.
is the topic for our next episode. So let me walk it back a little bit here. I could go so deep into nervous system. I can go so deep into parts, but let me walk it back a little bit here. The reason to teach these things, the reason to bring these things to this episode is because parts are going to come at you. Your nervous
Mm,
system is going to get activated. It is going to really be a process to not keep going down those old pathways. And it is so important to hold yourself with such tender love and compassion while you go
mm,
through this and hold those parts with tender love and compassion. It is okay that this is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And honestly, if you're doing the work of becoming right, it's going to keep happening. We're going to keep
mhm,
going through it. What I find that works for me now in a couple of years may no longer serve. Okay, what's next? Let's keep going. So, I really think that it's a beautiful thing to recognize the body here, recognize the psyche here. And one piece that we haven't super duper touched on yet, but you talking about source code
mhm,
reminded me of, and I do just want to slip in here, is that this journey can often lead us back to the soul, the one who we were before we came to live this life in this body, and the one who we will be after.
mm,
I truly
mm,
believe that we come to this life with a purpose. We come to this life for a reason. And that reason is individual, it's independent for each one of us. And there is an access point. Actually, I think there are probably a lot of access points
mhm,
to really coming into the remembrance of the soul's purpose. And for me, I found my access point in a concept called the Akashic Records.
mm.
Some people will know what that is. Some people won't. Some people will think it's a little woo woo. And that's totally fine. That's
Yeah.
totally fine. This is the way that I have learned to navigate through the idea of the soul. And I find this to be a very energetic, very spiritual practice. It's one that I practice for myself and I offer to clients who are interested, so inclined. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. If it's something that is intriguing to you, ask questions, come back for a future episode where we really dive into the Akashic Records. Um, but this feels appropriate to mention here because
Mhm,
this is, a little bit like prayer on steroids.
mm.
That's how I
No, that's good
describe it, that's
to
how I
think
describe
about.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually allows a window into who you are, who you have been, and who you want to become by connecting with kind of what I describe as a personal soul team. Your personal
Mm,
soul team, outside of the frequency of this 3D existence, this 3D earth life that we're living. And so here, right now, a lot of us understand the concept of, directly praying to God, God the creator, um, and and I believe that too.
yeah.
And I think there's this extra dimensional access that we have to team members who are
Mhm,
our soul's family.
mm,
And this is something that really can assist in this moment of remembering. I am more than just my nervous system. I am more than just my parts. I have a source code. And if that is true, who was I when I received that code? And what did I come here for? And where am I going? And there's
yeah.
access to all of that kinds of information. And so we will do future episodes on that. But that is something I thought I would slip in here before we reach the end of this episode because there is a spiritual and soul level remembering available to us at this point in our deconstruction as we then get ready for our reconstruction.
Yeah. I wanna add in here just a little science bit here because it just reminds me of one of the laws of the first law of thermodynamics, which is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when you talk about, we're energetic beings and tapping into the soul family, Well, why wouldn't we be able to, right? Because if we understand that once this body is gone, my energy still exists and lives on.
AI is really loving you today. There's been a lot of thumbs up and a lot of fireworks.
Fireworks behind me. For those who couldn't see, I just had fireworks explode behind me. But yeah, is that, you're able to tap into that. And that also ties in back to connecting to source through the Akashic Records is your method of that communication to source code and to the energetic field around us that could be related to our soul family and different kind of communication that you have access to.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it
Yeah.
too, and I'm really glad that you brought that type of science into this conversation. It's not something that I totally understand, but you're absolutely right. Can you say it again? Can you just say what that was?
Yeah, so the first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted from one form to another.
The first law
So,
of thermodynamics.
yeah. And Albert Einstein, I mean, this relates to his famous formula E equals mc squared, which, I mean, to put it simply, is like, energy and matter are interchangeable. And so when we think about this body and it's here for a certain period of time, we know that death is going to occur to this body, but death doesn't occur with our soul because we are energetic beings and energy cannot be destroyed, created, or destroyed. It just continues to exist in a different form.
Mm.
So it just reminded me of as you were talking about the Akashic Records, of um, that's what you're tuning into. You're tuning into the energetic field, to source,
Yes.
to the ether,
Yes.
to the quantum field. I mean, there's different words that you could use for that, right?
Absolutely. I would say that the Akashic Records is a form of quantum physics seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
even used that term correctly, but yes, you're exactly right. I'm tuning into the energy that always was and always will be. And it's a form of sight and experiencing outside of the 3D physical realm in which we find ourselves right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're curious about that, please ask questions. If you're curious
Yeah.
about that, please ask for an episode. We will do it. And I think
If you're curious about a session, contact Carly
and
because she
yeah, if
does
you're curious
Akashic.
about a session or a reading, please do reach out because that is an offering that I provide.
Yeah, this is great, Kai. I loved this conversation, and I think it just reminds us again, just to summarize everything that we discussed, that the remembering part is not about putting back together old pieces, right? It's about reconnecting more so to the essence of who we are, the essence that has always been there. Reminds us that this is not the end of our story. This is more so awareness that we're having beneath it all.
Thank you, Dee. This was such a great conversation. I think this is really where we wanted these conversations to go. As much as
Hmm.
we love providing education around neuroscience and around different psychotherapeutic theories, I think really getting into the realm of energy and really getting into the realm of how all of this fits together is so exciting for us. And those are the conversations we're hoping to have with listeners and um, everyone.